All right, there's two guys I really love, Ben Shapiro and what's this guy, Patrick David? Here goes. Didn't know Ben was this sharp, but I know he's pretty sharp. He's got the #1 political conservatives podcast there is.
Do not know who this man is. Let me give you a little bit of a background on Ben Shapiro. One, he graduated high school at 16 years old, okay? Apparently he was a 5'2", 120 junior is what I just found out about him. He became the youngest syndicated columnist in America at 17 years old, okay?
Wow, I mean, how do you become syndicated at 17 years old? This guy is aggressive.
Graduated from UCLA at 20 years old, I think bachelor's in political science. And then you go to Harvard Law, and you graduate there at the top of your class. Then you start a consulting and a law firm, consulting company yourself, and you go to Breitbart and now Daily Wire, and now you are he's the #1 conservative podcast around the world, and that's Ben Shapiro, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you on.
Conservative podcast around the world, #1. Pretty impressive. This guy gets after it. I've heard several of his talks.
On by Tim here with us. So Ben, let's get right into it. I have one simple question for you before we even get into all the other political questions. Your brain moves 1,000,000 miles a second. It's just going, it's going so like, and when I watch your eyes, so many thoughts come out so quickly, but it's so perfect, like perfect melody when it comes out. Have you always been like this since you were a kid?
Yeah, I always was able to articulate my thoughts relatively clearly, and I think it's gotten better as I've gotten older. I mean, I hope I don't speak the same way I did when I was 2, but I mean, I was winning speech contests when I was in 3rd grade, so it's not a.
You were winning speech contests at 3rd grade.
Against 9th graders when I was in 3rd, yeah.
So were you the kid that you always debated your mom and dad? Mom, I don't know if I agree with this. Dad, I don't know. Were you that
No,
kid?
thank God I got along with my parents really well.
Okay.
So I still get along with my parents really well. They live about a mile away, so.
So how did you form your political beliefs? Was it parents? Was it schooling? Was it a teacher? Was it a mentor? How did this come about for you?
I'd say mostly parents.
Okay.
But that's because my politics, I think, are more an outgrowth of values than they are of my desires to talk about tax rates. I think that the stuff that really matters is the value-based living that we all do. And so when I was young, there were a couple of...
Now, this is an interesting comment from Ben. It comes out of value-based principles, not out of training from his parents, which is a powerful statement.
Rules in the house. One of them was that if you made a mess, you cleaned it up, and the other was that if you were not working hard, you weren't doing your job. And that those two things are going to make you a conservative. I mean, if you believe that responsibility lies with you and that effort is the key, then I think that you're going to end up probably in a more conservative frame of mind, just because it's a very meritocratic basis for living. And also, you know, even though I was a smart kid,
Merit-based reason for living. That's interesting.
I know that there are a lot of people out there who are smarter than I am, for sure. I mean, I went to a junior high in North Hollywood called Walter Reed that had a highly gifted program. They give you an IQ test to get in, and I got in, but I didn't get in by like 1,000 points. There were kids there who had significantly higher IQs than I did, but I just knew that I was going to have to work harder than they did. And now you Google them, and a lot of them are in jail.
Are in jail.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is effort-based and not IQ-based, and I think that's true for most folks.
Have you always effort-based, not IQ-based? I mean, it's powerful stuff. This is why these things are so important.
Been somewhat competitive? Have you always been a pretty competitive kid? Obviously you have 2 kids, you have family now, but I'm saying when you were coming up, were you competitive?
Only competitive when challenged, and I think that the same thing is true. Like, I'm not looking for a competition. I'm not looking to play games with people, but if somebody starts to get competitive, then I get competitive.
So if somebody challenges you, you don't at all back down. You go right back at them, whether it's the Pierce Morgan interview when at that time everybody was talking about gun laws, gun this, gun that, and you addressed him. Whether it's another one that you were sitting next to somebody and she put her hand on you and she tried to stop you.
Yeah, Zoe Torre, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I was watching that, but it's very easy to watch you. It's amazing. It's very interesting watching you, and you just kind of see, you sit there, you hear them, then you come out with an argument, and all of a sudden they're backed up, they don't know what to say, then you go back again, and then the conversation is going to a whole different direction, then they're calling names. You have a very interesting way of debating different topics that you go through with people. So here's a question for you that I asked Prager as well as Jerry Springer. So you said your parents, you grew up knowing you have to pick up after you made a mess, so clean up, and then you had to work hard, you had to learn about hard work, all that stuff in your family. What if your parents were Bill and Hillary Clinton? Who would Ben Shapiro be today?
Hard to say because I'm not sure they were ever in the same house at the same time. But aside from that, I mean, look, Chelsea seems like a nice young person. I mean, I think that those values should be something relatively universal. My big problem with Bill and Hillary Clinton, just as human beings, is their focus on victimhood in politics for their own political gain. I think is a real problem. My guess is that when they raise their own children, when they raise Chelsea, they're probably teaching a lot of those same values because I think all successful people of any stripe have to abide by those values. I don't think that those are political values. Again, I think that if you are successful in life, you have to abide by those two simple rules. You got to clean up your own mess and you got to work hard. And so if you are successful, then it's a pretty good shot that somebody along the way taught you those values because there are very few people who leave messes for others or are lazy who do really well in a free country.
So here's why I'm asking a question from you. So both Jerry and Dennis gave two different answers. The question is, a big part of when I study how we form our opinions, political opinions, right? You'll see a trend with if a kid grew up in a family, loving family, the kid typically follows parents' philosophies, belief system, and then if mom and dad were really loving or something was even deeper, then it becomes a crusade. Some of them become true believers. You've read some of the books on true believers. You're obviously a true believer. Jerry's a true believer. Prager's a true believer. You got a lot of these guys that are true believers, right? But what if your parents were not Bill and Hillary? Let me pick another president that was Democratic. What if your parents were Jimmy Carter? What if your father was Jimmy Carter? Very good to you, everything. Would you still be as big of a libertarian as you are today, as big of a conservative as you are today?
I mean, I hope so, but I don't really know. I mean, I assume that the experiences that people have gone through shape their politics, but I hope that I'd wise up to Jimmy Carter's interventionist ways. I think that life tends to
He was a brilliant guy, by the way.
He was a very smart guy. I mean, Carter is a very IQ guy, very high IQ guy, but his values are completely wrong when it comes to politics because, while he is, I think, personally an honest fellow, I think that his belief in interventionism in the free markets springs from his own belief in his own brilliance. I think that, again, one of the things that going back to that second rule about effort, one of the corollaries of that rule is that
belief in his own brilliance, interventionism, intervening. That's an interesting statement. I'm going to end it. This is over an hour long, and I'm not going to go that long. I'll give you the source for this, but it gives you an insight on this young man and character, how character and beliefs and principles are so fundamental for all of us, on what we believe and how we act and what we do with our lives. Again, it's Roger Mark from Billings, Montana. Good day.